Henri Fauconnier. The 26th of February 1879, Musset Barbezieux, Charente. The 14th of April 1973, Paris. Was a French writer, known mainly for his novel Malaisie, which won the Prix Goncourt in 1930. He was part of the Groupe de Barbezieux family. Fauconnier was the son of Charles, a brandy dealer who operated on his property near Creux Chevanceau, and Melanie Fauconnier lived in Limoges, where she was the best friend of Anna Haviland of Haviland Porcelain. Haviland had arranged the 1874 marriage between the pair after she had married Georges Bouteilleau, Barbizillian poet, playwright and novelist. His family produced and promoted brandy butter Charente. Fauconnier was the third of 6 children. His siblings included Geneviève Fauconnier, 1886 to 1969, herself an award-winning writer who received the Prix Féminin in 1933. He later cited his own son, Bernard. Biography. In Barbezieux, in a cultured, artistic Catholic family of 6 children, Fauconnier lived very freely with his siblings, cousins and friends in the garden and cellars of Musset. His friend Jacques Bouteilleau, who would later be known under the pen name Jacques Chardon following the publication of the Epithalamy in 1921, came every day. They published a newspaper, and dramas were played on the castle square with text and music written by Fauconnier. In 1901, Fauconnier's father died following a long illness, and Fauconnier left Bordeaux for England, where he taught French music for 2 years in the small college of Wells House. There, a journal article drew his attention, suggesting there was a fortune to make in Borneo by planting sago. The idea took shape. If he wanted to write, he must first become a man of leisure. The easiest way to become a man of leisure would be to first make a fortune. Malaysia. He left from Marseille, March 10, 1905, on a stopover in Singapore. A month later, he decided to leave for the Borneo rubber plantations of Malaysia, which seemed more promising. He got an internship at his expense to a planter clang near Kuala Lumpur so that he could learn the craft and the 2 essential languages, Malay and Tamil. In August, he discovered the location where he would eventually open his own plantation, in fertile land located on the distant hills beyond the Selangor River. He obtained a grant of 600 acres, 2.4 square kilometers, and settled in Rantau Panjang in early 1906, when he built his first Maison des Palmes. He loved all people, places, landscapes, hard work, the climate, life and la vie. His mother mobilizes funds for this rich uncle to give her younger sisters. Thanks to these 20,000 francs, and the funds that his friend Jacques puts into his business, he was able to begin planting. In 1908, he founded at Brussels the Plantation Fauconnier and Post, with the assistance of the banker Adrian Hallett. He converted all he had in stocks and founder shares. Some friends joined the Charente to help expand its plantations. His grew wealthy with a doubling in the price of rubber in 2 years and the tripling of the value of its shares in the single year 1910. He was then chief of the Hallett Plantation Group in the Far East, Sumatra, Java, Indochina and Malaysia. In 1911, on an idea of Hallett, he sent a few bags of seeds of palm oil, Liis guineensis, from Sumatra to Malaysia, which would grow into the vast plantations of Malaysia. He established Tenar Maram near Rantau Panjang, the first plantation of palm oil from Malaysia. After several visits to Malaysia, his family joined him there to settle. But he felt that a page in his life had turned. Material success was assured, and it had only been a means to an end. Keeping an eye on the plantation, he arranged to delegate his powers so that he might finally devote himself to writing, World War I and marriage. But nobody expected World War I. Fauconnier married Madeleine Meslier, the sister of a planter who was a childhood friend of Barbezieux, but refused the French consul's request that he remain where he was to ensure the continued production of rubber. Instead, he enlisted with the other French men at the plantation. After a few months in a depot of Périgueux, a place of prevailing squalor, stupidity, and military negligence, he arrived where he would remain as second class in most major battles except for two periods. First, for training officer school at Mourmel-en-le-Grand in late 1916, and, second, for leave in Malaysia after his marriage in Charente in March 1917. From there he left for a few months to Indochina with the enemy's sharpshooters to attend Auguste Chevalier. In autumn 1917, he was reclaimed by France as an interpreter for the British Army. He left his wife in Saigon, pregnant and sick, when she returned with her daughter in April 1918. The ship which carried them in the Mediterranean was torpedoed. Throughout the war, he cursed the Europeans and dreamed of being in Malaysia. The letters he wrote his wife in this period were published in 1998 as Letters to Madeleine, 1914 to 1918. In Tunisia, after he was discharged, he left his wife in Switzerland, near Chardon, as she was threatened with tuberculosis. Then he left to return to the plantations, which needed his help to expand Halit. Through 1928, he made several inspection trips to Malaysia and Indochina, bound first by a long rubber crisis. Then, to ensure a more stable income, he accepted a position as director of several companies of tropical plantations. Liking neither the city of Paris nor the climate of France, he settled in Raides, near Tunis, in 1925. This was, for him, a compromise of remoteness and climate between Malaysia and the Charente. He occupied the terrace, a large low house in Arabic style surrounded by a huge garden. Malaisie and the Prix Goncourt. In 1931, Jean-Paul Hann offered to publish Fauconnier's book on Malaysia. Enthusiastic about the chapter Fauconnier had displayed, Malaisie, published by Stock, proved very popular and highly respected. But the celebrity that attended on its publication and his winning of the Prix Goncourt did not change Fauconnier. He kept to his usual practices. Being a writer was not a priority for him. He saw himself as a man of letters, and his letters show all his correspondent qualities. But he did enjoy his correspondences with other writers, including John Amrouche, Georges Bernanos, Henri Bosco, Jean Cocteau, Colette, Lucie Delarue Madras, Alfred Fabre-Luce, Paul Géraldi, André Gide, Jean Giono, Jean Guéhenno, A. Guibert, Henry de Kieseling, Roger Martin Dugard, Maurice Maeterlinck, Jean-Paul Hann, Romain Roland, and Jean Schlumberger. Fauconnier was not the only successful writer in his family. In 1933, the Prix Féminin was awarded to his sister Geneviève for her best-selling novel Claude. When she received the reward, Fauconnier and Geneviève Fauconnier became the only brother and sister in France to have ever received the Prix Goncourt and Prix Féminin awards. Visions. Fauconnier had hated the Treaty of Versailles. He knew that Europe took the huge risk of repeating the vile war of 1914–18. He did not suffer unduly during the depression of the 1930s because of his resources in Malaysia. But he was troubled deeply by the rise of Nazism, fascism in Italy, the conquest of Abyssinia, and the Spanish Civil War. In October 1938, he published anonymously a collection New Visions discussing some of his past life. It included The Lady, Christmas Malay, Indian Dravidian, Barbara, The Asphodels, and Vision. The following summer, fearing the ambitions of Benito Mussolini on Tunisia, he took his family from the Terrace to settle in Musset. World War II and the last years. Life was not easy during World War II. His children grew up, and he, despite the reservations he had, repatriated to France. He was being gradually cut off from his resources in Belgium, England, Malaysia, and Indochina. He had neither the desire nor the courage to write, but preferred instead to listen to the BBC. The post-war period also was difficult. But in 1947 he agreed to be the leader of the Group of Federalist Writers for United States of Europe. It was the hope of the group that, in reconciling the people of Europe, they might prevent its governments from claiming national missions. In 1957, he was offered a trip to Malaysia for nostalgia's sake by a society of plantations, which had included the Socf and Revord group. Afterwards, he settled into a quiet retirement, during which he remained busy playing tennis and chess, gardening and swimming, dreaming of an opportunity to resume writing a sequel to Malaisie and continuing his correspondence. He divided his time between the Côte d'Azur, Paris, where his children and grandchildren lived, and the Charente. In April 1973, Fauconnier died in Paris. He was buried in Barbezieux. His only wish was that Musset be kept in the family. Works: Malaysia Artes Graficas Lara, 1931. Visions Stock. Delanya et Bouteillot, 1938. Lettres à Madeleine, 1914–1919. Stock. 1998. ISBN 978-2-224-05056-3. English translations. Malaisie. Translated by Eric Sutton. The Macmillan Company. 1931. The Soul of Malaya translated by Eric Sutton E. Matthews and Marrett. 1931. Works by Henri Fauconnier at Open Library. Sources: Bernard Fauconnier. La fascinante existence d'Henri Fauconnier. Prix Goncourt 1930. Préface Jean-Loup Avril. Editions G. D. St. Malo. 2004. Annie David. Interview de Bernard Fauconnier, son of Henri. 31 ans après la mort d'Henri Fauconnier. Son fils Bernard évoque sa vie exotique et leurs relations religieuses. Véronique Bonnet Nora. La Maison des Palmes. 2003. Documentaire de 50 minutes.